Okay. Hello, hello.
Thank you so much for being here tonight, Andreas. Just to begin our conversation, I wanted to start with when you first arrived to the school and wanted to ask if you could tell us a bit about the process of getting to know the kids and if you conducted interviews prior to shooting and how you came to focus on the specific kids that are featured most prominently in the film.
Yeah. Does it work?
Okay.
At first, I contacted the Red Cross and asked for the permission to shoot at the school. And normally they don't allow journalists to enter the school because they want to protect the kids. But then after some persuasion, and I also showed my previous work where I've worked with kids a lot. Then they allowed me to be there as long as I wanted, and then they suggested that I went to the class of Dorte, the teacher you see in the film, because she was really good, and then I agreed to that, and then I just slowly started shooting, and I think in the eyes of the kids, I just became a part of the classroom. There were several other teachers who would help out Dorte during the day, and I think they viewed me as one of those, and then I just happened to have a camera as well. It was like that, so it was really easy to gain the trust of the kids, and then I just tried. I followed different kids, maybe 10 or 12, just some of them only for a day, just to see who worked well and who was comfortable with the camera. And then I ended up choosing these 5, and I had a feeling that Magomed would be the main character, because he had this quality of, well, he didn't say a word, but which is normally bad for a main character. But he was observing the other kids, and I liked that, because then he could kind of bind the story together, just observing the life in the class, and then at some point he would himself take a step forward.
I'd like to continue on this topic of the camera and observation, because the cinematography really does capture very telling everyday moments, not just in school but at home, without seeming to affect the environment, and seems to pick up very subtle interactions. So I wanted to ask what kind of crew you were working with, and if the camera had any impact on the environment in the classroom that you noticed.
Well, I sometimes I just went by myself, and sometimes I brought a cinematographer. So I think I shot 1/3 of it myself, and then one cinematographer shot 1/3, and then another 1/3. I don't know. I think it's just a matter of time that when people get used to the camera, they relax. In the beginning, in the class, there was a lot of waving to the camera and a lot of annoying things, but we managed to get them to stop that after a while, and then they felt that the camera was kind of boring, I think. So that was helpful. And with the scenes at home, I think sometimes most of it is just natural, and some shots are more staged. When he's sleeping, it's when he's lying and listening, it's something that we ask him to. So I blend kind of different methods. But most of it is totally natural, without intervention.
And there's one more topic I would like to touch on before opening it up to audience questions, and I'm sure there are many questions, and that's the music in the film, which I think really complements the images, and you worked with composer Bo Rade on the score. So I wanted to ask what that collaboration was like and what you wanted the music to do for the film.
Yeah, we did the mistake that many people do, that we found some really beautiful music that we couldn't use, because in the editing you need something, and you can't wait for a composer to compose it. So we found some really beautiful stuff. It was Johnny Greenwood, his score from Norwegian Wood. And I felt that it was kind of impossible to or it didn't make sense to try to imitate that. But I got he's a very good friend of mine, Bo, who made the music, and he works a lot with the trumpet and the flugelhorn, and he has this way of making a really airy sound that is almost like breathing through his flugelhorn. And then combined with the guitar, we wanted to create like a light, not a too heavy, too emotional atmosphere, but but it is still emotional, but it shouldn't be too sentimental. So that was the balance. Yeah.
Well, at this point, I would like to open it up to audience questions, and there's a microphone going around, so if you can just wait for the microphone to be passed to you. We'll start with the gentleman at the back, and then we'll come to the second last row.
Andreas, thank you for witnessing that for us. Not demanding a sequel from you, but how would you imagine the development of those children in the Danish public school now?
Well, most of the film was shot like as you see in the end. They have grown a lot. So yeah, most of the film is shot 2-3 years ago. And from what I know, I speak to them once in a while. That they are doing pretty well. Yeah, under the circumstances that some of them have mentally ill parents and so on. It's really, yeah, it's hard to say. I think Magomed, he's really into school, so I think he's gonna do well. He's good at in school, and you know, the guy with the nightmares, Ali, the Afghan boy, he's been going into Thai boxing, and he just won the Nordic championship in Thai boxing. I don't know if it can turn into a professional career, but he really found something that he could hold on to and I think it has helped him a lot. Amel he's much better today. That's the guy with who repeats himself a lot and is very what do you say, DH, yeah. And he's much more calm now. I invited all of them to the premiere of the film, and it was really nice to see them. And he said that he couldn't recognize himself being like that. So he seemed to be much more calm now. But of course, it's always really a difficult transition to go from this refugee school where everybody is in the same situation, and then just entering a public school where you're just sitting on the back row, and maybe the teacher doesn't know how to handle you. And the first boy in the film, Shemus from Syria, he started. You see him his first day in the Danish school, and what I heard just 2 weeks after it was that every day he got into a fight, and he had taken like a grip on another boy in the schoolyard, and he had to be transferred to another school. So I think it has a lot to say whether the school is capable of receiving them and understanding them and giving them room, and I think the teacher in the film, Dorte, she manages to do that, but it's not general in the public schools that the teachers, they have that ability or those skills.
I saw another question in the back, the woman in the white jumper, and then we'll start at the back.
Hello. Sorry, I just wanted to ask you about that one scene between the Chechen father and son, an incredibly difficult, heartbreaking scene where his father explains what happened to him. How did that come about? Was that something you prompted, and how was that ethically for you to sort of sit in on that conversation or indeed spark it?
Yeah, that's a good question. It was the first time I actually asked anybody to do something. And I asked them because I knew that the father was rejected, but I didn't have it on camera. I couldn't really tell it. So I asked them if they could talk about the situation. What is the status with the residency for you and the rest of the family? And then they agreed to talk about it. But then it was in Chechen, and I didn't have an interpreter. So when it got into the thing about the torture and all that, I didn't know what the father was saying. So I only found out later. But I could see, of course, that Magomed was really affected by it, and he was in shock afterwards. And he didn't want to be filmed the next days because of that scene. And yeah, that made me really sad and but then I had to find out should I use this scene in the film or not, and I find that it's an important scene, and it shows how it shows the difficulties of both the parents and the kids, and maybe it, I know it's really he's too young to hear stories like that, but maybe it actually helped him in a way to understand some of his past and to make him move forward. That's a guess. But it was a very delicate situation, and I would normally assume that a father would know what to say to his child and take responsibility. But because the father is in a really difficult, desperate situation, then he's not able to do that.
Yeah, the boy that had the dreams, was he receiving some kind of trauma counseling? And what about the other children and the parents as well? Did you get any sense of, was there any kind of therapeutic support for them, or? Yeah,
I think at Red Cross they have a team of psychiatrists and psychologists connected, and Ali especially, he after a while it turned out that he was not only having nightmares, he was how do you say, hallucinating. So he experienced these events of his father being beaten and so on during the daytime. So it could happen in all kinds of situations that suddenly he was witnessing this. So he got into a really heavy also medical treatment for 1 or 2 years, but then he got out of that as well, and he's much better today.
Next we take another woman in black. So we take your question next, and we'll come to the side and then.
Hi. So that was a really amazing film, and I had a really kind of emotional reaction to it, and it made me think a lot about how did you manage your own kind of personal reactions, spending that much time with children that were traumatized and with adults that were traumatized. How did you protect yourself from kind of inviting that trauma in?
Yeah, of course. I get very affected by it, and I get very touched by it, but I don't feel that it's like taking over anything in me. I just feel an urge to make a film about it and to show people how it is. And then I think spending the time at the school, most of all it was a really good experience, and I felt that most of the kids had a lot of strength, and I wanted to focus also on that, their capability of adapting and learning a new language and so on. yeah, so I felt most days were actually uplifting during the shoot. Also because they're just kids and they want to have fun and want to play and so on. So I didn't get depressed by making the film at all.
I just wanted to ask 3 questions. How long
Okay.
did it take you to make the film? How long did the school survive before it was closed? And are there any other Red Cross schools like this anywhere else in Europe? I work with the Red Cross with refugees in Islington, and I've never heard about the Red Cross were setting up schools. So it was really interesting to hear about that kind of venture for the Red Cross. So I'm just interested in those 3 points.
Yeah. Okay. I started in 2011, and then I filmed on and off for almost 2 years. But it was, I mean, I had breaks of 2 months and 3 months. Actually, I started out filming some other kids than what you see in the film, because then I had to apply for funds and I had to wait a lot. I was also working on another film at the same time, and then when I got back to the school, all the kids were gone, and some new kids were there. So that taught me that I had to be more focused on one project and just stay there with the new kids. And then, yeah, the Red Cross school, it still exists, but it works differently now. It's only for the kids who just arrived to Denmark. So they are at the school for 2-3 weeks until they are transferred to another refugee center. But then I think there are like 7 schools in Denmark, but not of exactly this kind. Some of them are now attached to refugee centers. But there is a school which is very similar to this one, but it's far from this location, and that's also why Dorte chose not to keep on working there, because it was 2 hours away from her home. And because she already got fired once, then she felt insecure. But that's the conditions of the whole asylum system in Denmark, is that they close places and open new places and so on, because they have to adapt all the time to the predictions of how many refugees are coming and what are the needs, and how much do we have to cut down on the budgets and so on. And I don't know if how it is in the rest of Europe. We screened it in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, and there was a news program who went to a similar school there. But I don't know if it's run by Red Cross, but they have something similar. But I have to check that out.
In the second row, and then.
What were the stories? You must have gathered loads of footage, but what were the stories that you had to cut to keep it sort of simple and focused?
I didn't. I mean, I just followed some other kids, and it's not like I can't really remember some really great stories that I had to cut out. I think I had just enough for a film. Yeah. Over a period of 2 years. But they were in the school for how long? It depended. The average is about a year. So Magomed was there for a year. So you filmed them over that period? Yeah, yeah. Were you there when all the kids arrived, or you filmed partway through? Sometimes I was there early when Magomed just had arrived, but I wasn't there the day he arrived. That would have been nice, but it's impossible to predict. It's a lovely film, well done. Thanks.
Thanks. We'll take the two questions here in the front, and then I saw another hand on the side.
I was just wondering, it was a wonderful film, amazing. Two questions. One was to maintain, first of all, these kids are at school, so they're partly in your film, but they're also getting an education. And secondly, it's very natural. So I was wondering what the process is for miking up. I mean, you can see that the children are on microphones. So what's the process each day so that you're picking out those particular children? And also how you, one of the things that struck me was that it's all shot from the child's point of view. Everything is from child height. And so I just wanted you to talk a little bit about the technical side of the production.
Yeah. Yeah, with the microphone, of course, because a school is such a noisy place. In the beginning, I thought that everything should take place in the classroom, but then I found out that it was way too noisy, and also that the kids were maybe not that focused because of all the things going on. So I couldn't really get in so many good scenes in the classroom. So I found out that I got better scenes if I just had one-on-one scenes with a teacher and a child, or with a father and a child, and so on. But with the microphone, I think I just chose today you're gonna have the microphone, and then I put it on. And so it's just one each day? Yeah. And in the beginning they were all fighting about the microphone. But then some kids didn't want the microphone at all. The guy Shimus, the boy from Syria, he didn't want it. I was in the beginning. I thought maybe he should be the main character, but he didn't feel that comfortable with the camera, so I just shot him a little bit. And the child's point of view, how did you? Yeah, I mean, that was just an idea from the beginning, that we want to experience the daily life through the eyes of a kid. And then we just shot it from there. And it's kind of difficult if you want to be down there without getting back bad eggs. Yeah. But that's I think that it gives another feeling than if you are looking down at.
Hi, good, great cinematography. Wanted to know about what did you want to achieve with the film?
I didn't have a specific goal. I think I just wanted to, for myself, experience how it is to be a refugee child, and now, when I got the idea for the film, it wasn't a hot topic as it is today. And now I hope that the film can give another perspective than what we normally hear in the medias, because it's all about stereotypes and statistics and so on. And it's obvious, but people tend to forget that these are just normal kids in a really difficult situation. So now I hope that the film can achieve that.
No, because I was quite surprised at the end that because watching the film you think that they would all get asylum, and then when it got to the end there was this sense that some didn't get asylum.
Yeah.
And at that stage it made me think about the filmmaking process and how we weren't invited into to what was happening.
Yeah.
I ended up being quite curious about the kind of interaction. And in fact, the scene with the father was very, very, for me anyway, was quite moving and probably the best sequence, because at that stage you're kind of getting into clearly why they were there, and so on.
Exactly. But my experience is that most of the kids, they don't really know why they're there, and they don't know why they fled in the first place. So it's not like they talk a lot about that. We had to flee because this and this was happening, and I think many of their parents, they don't tell the kids why they had to leave, and they don't tell them about their cases. But in some cases, Ali, the guy with the nightmares and the hallucinations, he after I stopped filming, he actually started, because he was the only one in his family who could speak Danish. So he started taking care of their case, even though he was just 12 years old. Then he contacted the lawyer and said, now we got this letter from the authorities, what can we do, and so on, because all the letters are in Danish, and it's impossible for the people to read it. So in some cases, the kids get very much involved in the case. But yeah. But it's hard to get access to, because you are not allowed to film the meetings at the what's it called? Yeah, the ministry where they deal with all these cases. It's very closed.
Take the next 3 questions. I saw the woman on the side was waiting very patiently, and then we'll come to the front.
Hi, I thought it was a lovely film. Thank you. You'll know this better than me, obviously, but there's been a change in government since you started making the film. Am I right? To
In Denmark.
Right-wing government. And the organisation that I work for, that has a big branch in Denmark, has lost a lot of foreign aid funding. And I know that Denmark has perhaps more xenophobia towards refugees than other Northern European countries that are accepting refugees. How much of that did you see having an impact on, if not the children, then their families, and how much of that do you think was kind of present in their lives?
I think when I made the film, they were all living in refugee centers, and they didn't have much interaction with the Danish society. So at that stage, I don't think they feel the animosity against refugees in Denmark. It's mainly through the media, I think. So it's only after they move from the refugee center and out in the society that they can feel that. Yeah. Which organization do you work for?
ActionAid.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't remember the name in Danish.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but that's also why I hope that the film can do something, because in Denmark it's terrible about the way the policies that are made these days, but luckily there's been a reaction in the civil society as well. So yeah, since the election, all the polls have gone really low for the people in charge, and a lot of people have started their own work to help the refugees and so on, and so that's good. But I think Denmark has been, compared to England, Denmark has been quite closed. We don't have a history of people from abroad coming to Denmark and settling down. It's only in the 60s or 70s that we started having that. So there are, I mean, the right-wing parties, they really have this feeling that they should protect the Danish society, and they can't see any point in having foreigners there, and yeah, so that's sad.
We have time for one last question. I think, did we have a question? Did someone else have a question that we haven't got to?
How well did you get to know daughter, and
how what?
Did you get to know daughter?
Mm.
And what were I know you didn't really show them, but what was her like feelings about the work that she was doing and seeing these kids come and go? Did you get a sense of that?
Yeah. It was actually the head of the school who pointed her out and said, well, you should go to her class because she's a really good teacher. And I agreed that she was really warm and she was really good at investing herself in the work. And I know that she told me that she didn't want to know the past of all the kids, because that would make it difficult for her to work there. She would get too affected by it, and at the same time she would like the kids just to feel normal. So her main task was to build up a trust and to give them a structure. Because if they've been on the run for maybe 2-3 years, then they didn't have any structure in their life. So just doing repetitions, doing the same thing every day, having a clear structure, that really helped them. That was her philosophy. And then just giving them a hug every day and just taking her time just to talk, maybe just 30 seconds to each child every day. That was her goal. But it's interesting because you have this notion that you need to talk about the past and talk about things all the time. But in this case, it helped her just to not to go too much into the past and so on, and let the children just be children.
Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. If anybody wants to learn more about the film or arrange a screening of it, where would be the best place for us to look? Is there a website or the best contact?
We have a Facebook page called At Home in the World.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
and
for
thank you
coming.
everyone for coming.